Hello, every one of you wonderful people. Guess what? It's Tuesday, September 28th, 2021. It's a Tuesday. You know what that means? It's time to get nerdy. Welcome to episode 200 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the multiverse. I am Maction, and of course, my friend, my fellow nerd, and couch co-op connoisseur, Mr. Nice Guy 425, who goes by during the normal IRL meet space hours as Mr. Lam Galuka, a stand-up comedian and stand-up guy.
Thank you so much, Mac. Dude, I cannot believe, and that sounds so cliche, because I can believe it, because we are really passionate about video games and about hanging out once a week cross-country. I can believe that we hit episode 200, and I'm excited that we are here, man. This started as a journey several years ago in the basement of my house, occasionally in the living room of Maction's house, and we're still here. We're still strong. We're still standing. We're still strong. Name that movie, Mac.
I can't.
Antoine Fisher. I'll help you out. Antoine Fisher.
Oh, okay.
I'm still standing. I'm still strong. But anyway, this is a video game podcast, and I am hyped to do it, Mac. What's new with you, man? How is the week? How's the internet?
Well, the internet is more stable now. As I'm sure you guys can see, those of you who are here with us live can probably see my face. And while the room still leaves a little something to be desired, it's a little echoey. Sorry about that. And the walls are a little sparse. I'm working on it, and I'm getting there. But one thing at a time. So hopefully we've got stable enough nets. Involved installing a satellite dish, huh? Because I'm kind of in the middle of nowhere still.
Yeah, I got you. Well, dude, guess what? I'm not in the middle of nowhere, and I still haven't put my stuff up yet either. I actually record in my basement now. I need to get my Marvel stuff up. I got some cool new ideas for artwork I need as a backdrop. Next week, I'm going to have something up so it's not just the back of my basement and the little mini fridge over there. It's going to be way more cool. Mac, I did a gig this weekend. I drove back to Illinois. About 2.5 hours, private gig, birthday party. You know how sometimes, I guess you don't know this, but I'll tell you, sometimes as a comedian, you do a set and you're like, that wasn't that good. But in your mind, it's worse than it really was. And the audience tells you, hey, that was actually really great. You did great. This was not one of those times. This time, I think I bombed for the whole time that I was up there. And it was very uncomfortable. Just to give you some perspective, I showed up and there was a DJ. And the DJ was playing the hits, and everyone's dancing, having a good time. The lady who hired me goes up, interrupts the DJ, asks everyone to stop dancing and go sit down, and then says, guys, we brought some entertainment in. Guess what? It's a comedian who you've never heard of. Everyone, it's Lam Galuka. And then I walked up, and nobody clapped.
Oh.
And I was like... She didn't really say it's a comedian that you've never heard of. But the point is, everyone was dancing and partying. She interrupted that and brought me up, and everyone was silent when I went up there. So I'm already in a hole. Suffice it to say, did not go well, to the point that I was like 20 minutes in. I think I was supposed to do 45 to an hour, and she just came up and whispered to me. She was like, just do 5 more minutes. And so I did 5 more minutes and just walked off. And then she paid me, and like as she's paying me, she's walking me to the door. Like, no, you can't stay and eat the food. No, you can't stay and dance. You did your thing, and thank you. Now, she did text me the next day and said, great job. But I feel like that was her being nice. That was my weekend back.
Wow, that's so harsh. And I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe you are remembering it as worse than it was. But I mean, I don't see how you could be. That sounds so bad.
It was very uncomfortable. Don't interrupt the DJ and then bring up a mid-level comedian that's not that well known.
Oh,
but
dude,
anyway, Mac.
That's sorry, man.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, sorry, man. That sounds so rough, and I've got nothing that can even approach the level of it because I don't put myself out there that much like you do. And you know what? Yeah, I know you don't need a pep talk from me, but I just feel in my heart and soul that I'm like, dude, don't give up on your stand-up, man. Keep at it.
Oh, never, 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 never would I give up. Dude, it's a bad set. You have bad sets, you have good ones. It's all good. Let's keep it moving. I say we do what we do best and we hop right into that gaming news, man. What do you think about that?
Let's do it, because I hear that there's a lot this week.
There's a lot of gaming news, and this is episode 200 of Two Nerds in a Pod. Thank you for tuning in. Let's talk about, and this is where I want to get your opinion, Mac. I also want to get a good friend of ours in the chat, Bennis's opinion. There was a Nintendo Direct this past week. Lots of cool news came out. We're getting a new 3D Kirby. That was actually leaked pre-show. But to me, some of the biggest news involves Nintendo Online, and this comes from Nintendo.com. A new Nintendo Switch Online membership plan with expanded benefits is coming. It says level up with a Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack membership. Get access to even more benefits with a library of Nintendo 64 games featuring newly added online play for up to 4 players. And it says, as well as, here's the thing, Mac, retro Sega games classics are going to be on there as well. All the other great benefits of Nintendo Switch Online are also included, such as access to 100 plus NES and Super NES games, and exclusive online matches in Tetris 99 and Pac-Man 99 games, etc., etc. Mac, here's the gist of it. We're getting in 64 games on Nintendo Switch, for those who are excited about that. We're also getting Sega Genesis games. In addition to that, we are getting controllers. So you can buy an N64 controller now to use specifically with your Nintendo Switch wirelessly. You can also buy, believe it or not, a Sega Genesis controller with Wi-Fi. Those each cost $50.
Are you
Now, let's start with the
100% sure on that Sega Genesis controller? Because while I try my best not to look at stuff like this, I could have sworn that I saw that it was a Japan-only release on that Sega Genesis, but I could be wrong.
No, I'm looking at it right now, and this is all in English on the packaging. So I'm looking at it right now. They announced it as everywhere, $50. Who would have thought? But let's talk controllers before we talk about the games that are going to be on here. What do you think about this, man?
Well,
obviously these games will be compatible with the Switch controllers people already have. Is this price point realistic?
Well, first off, fantastic news. I'm glad that you in the United States will be able to get your hands on a Genesis-style controller, because as strange as it might sound, I liked those little boomerangs. Were they the most ergonomic? Definitely not. But I mean, you know, it's great to have them, and especially... I think we've talked about this in previous episodes, that there is some amount of constraint that comes from the controls that are available to you or to anything else. So, yeah. I mean, I'm glad about that. Now, as for the Nintendo 64, I mean, that is cool. I'm glad that we're getting some good hits, or that you all are getting some good hits. But those controllers, man.
I don't know about $50 for an N64 controller, because here's the thing, man. Like, you're not buying one of those. You're buying a bunch of them if you're going to get it. And that's a lot of money. Like, if you need 4 of those, that's $200 just for the N64 controllers. That's insane, you know, just to play the N64 games. Now, the other thing I want to ask you, and Spennis too, if he is still here, I want to get your perspective on the games that are going to be available at launch, and also on the fact that you have to pay more. Because previously Nintendo Switch Online was $20 a year. You got access to all those SNES games, all the NES games, as well as the ability to play online, right? But now they're going to likely charge more for these. And here's the N64 games available at launch: Super Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, Star Fox 64, Yoshi's Story, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, Windback Covert Operations, Mario Tennis, Dr. Mario 64, and I can't even tell what this last game is. Something Japanese. What do you think about those as the initial ones? Full disclosure, we do know we're going to get the second Zelda game at a later date.
Well,
any glaring omissions?
Well, you know me, I only just a couple of years ago became the owner of a Nintendo 64, so there's a lot that I don't know on that console. However, I feel like there's something I should be thinking of that, like an obvious one that is just escaping me. So we'll just chalk that up to me not knowing my 64 too well. Glad that we're getting Ocarina of Time. Gotta have that. Super Mario 64, fantastic. Star Fox 64, also good. Did I hear Mario Kart as well?
Yep, you did. You sure did. Yep.
That checks a lot of boxes for me. But what do you think is missing?
Yeah, I think it's a good starting point. I mean, it's weird to me. We just got Super Mario 3D All Stars, which has Mario 64 on it, right? So I feel like people who really, really, really wanted to play that game again probably picked that up. And it wasn't hard to find, which is rare for Nintendo. So I think that it's good that it's on there, but I would have potentially replaced it with something else, or added an additional game rather than just having these 9 at start. I mean, they just released Tony Hawk on PlayStation and Xbox remastered, and plus a lot of those old games have licensing issues, right? We're not going to get GoldenEye as much as I would love to see GoldenEye. I would like to see Perfect Dark at some point. I would like to see Gauntlet Legends, Donkey Kong 64, and some of those. But we'll have to wait and see. So, Mac, we'll keep things moving because, like I said, there is a ridiculous amount of news this week. Let's talk about Netflix, dude. Netflix is officially getting into gaming, and they're aiming at the casual market. This is on IGN.com by Logan Plant. Netflix is continuing its foray into video games with 3, and I should have read the comments in the chat. Let me read that one comment from Galvatron real quick, because it was ridiculous, but it was related to Nintendo. Nintendo should do a Game Pass service for their older games for $10 per month. They would make billions. I just wanted to read that so I could say, no, they shouldn't. That would be ridiculous. That would cost us all way more than we're paying right now. Love you, G, but I disagree. All right, back to this other story. Netflix is continuing its foray into video games with 3 new titles aimed at casual audiences. However, most people around the world still can't try out the service. As reported by TechCrunch, Netflix subscribers in Spain, Italy, and Poland can access 3 new games starting today: Shooting Hoops, Teeter Up, and Card Blast. Users in these regions can find titles under the new Games tab in the Netflix app, but only on Android devices. Mac, you have a Netflix subscription. You like mobile stuff, right? I mean, you're into it more so than I am. Are you going to give this a shot, or is this just like shovelware stuff that they're coming out with on Netflix?
I'm very hesitant to ever call anything shovelware, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen any visuals. I haven't heard anything about them aside from just what you've said. This is brand news to me. I will say, though, that there is a evil little part of me that's just like, mwahaha, for once a mobile thing, well, for once a mobile game
and
comes
Android
to
only.
Android first.
Yeah. Yeah, and here's the other thing I read today, too. Netflix just bought, I believe it's called Night School, the publishers, and they're the ones who did Oxenfree. They made some really, really solid games. So I don't think this is just Netflix putting some of their engineers to work and saying, hey, why don't you guys make some games and we'll put them out there? I mean, like, they're actually starting to acquire smaller game studios, which I think is dope. And if Netflix can really pull this off and really have high quality stuff, number one, it's going to increase the number of subscribers. But Mac, what do you think it's going to do to the price? You think they're going to keep it as is, or do you think they're going to, instead of bumping it up $2 this year, bump it up like $7? What do you think, man?
Wow, 7 would be a large bump for adding a couple of mobile games as an experiment on somewhere. I mean, we've seen huge price jumps for ridiculous and often baseless reasons before in all sorts of areas, whether video games, pharmaceuticals, or otherwise. Those just come to mind. But I wouldn't put it past anybody to use very flimsy justifications to try and line their pockets some more. But $7 jump for Netflix, presumably. I mean, they would
just
have
an arbitrary number that I threw out.
Yeah, I know, but man, they would have to. I feel like for me to feel comfortable with Netflix adding games, it would need to be AAA title style stuffs and a bunch of them for me to bundle that in, as it were.
Well, and that's the thing, we've reached the point where I have no shortage of ways to play video games. I don't think anyone
right?
who really likes video games does. Between your phone, right? Everyone has a phone, right? And most people have a computer of some sort. And a lot of people have a console, whether it's a retro console or current gen, right? I have no shortage of ways to play. I don't know that I want to hook up to my TV and play. Although I will say, I think this is the future. I think that having an app built into the TV, and Microsoft has already said that they're going this route in the future, where you can play Game Pass directly from your TV. You don't need a console. You don't need any other hardware. You just need the subscription and a controller, and you're good to go. And I think that Netflix is going that route, but we will see if it is successful. Uh, let's keep things moving, Mac. Unless you have other comments on that. You're good. So sweet. So speaking of Microsoft, we got some cool news that was very exciting to me. Interested to hear the ideas on this from people in the chat about Game Pass. So this is by Matt Perslau on IGN.com. Square Enix has announced that Marvel's Avengers to Xbox Game Pass this week in 2 days, everybody, on September 30th. And just to be clear, when we talk about Marvel's Avengers, we're talking about the game, the Avengers game. Revealed in an Xbox Wire post, Marvel's Avengers will be added to Game Pass on September 30th. It will be available across PC, console, and cloud. The Xbox Game Pass version will be the complete package of all Marvel's Avengers content so far, including Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, and the brand new Black Panther War for Wakanda expansion. This is unbelievable. Mac, we just, and when I say we, I mean PlayStation owners, just got access to this DLC, and so did Xbox owners. Like a couple weeks ago. Well, like what's the time frame between releasing something as paid DLC and then making that free on Game Pass? Like what do you think is realistic? I'm asking you to open your marketing brain up on this one.
Man, my open my marketing brain, the one that I've kept downstairs in the murder basement for such a long time. Okay, I'll see what I can do.
That was not what I was implying at all.
No, I don't know, but this timing does not seem right. I feel like there's a period of time, and most of the time, I think most people disagree with me on where the time scales should be. I feel like you should get, as part of like the game, right? You buy a game, you get a year, you get everything that comes out for it for a year, and then maybe, the DLC that comes out after a year ought to be that. And I know that wasn't the question, but what I'm getting at is I feel like for me, that's kind of the period of time where I feel like that game should be should be standalone or supported well, you know what I mean? So like I would be frustrated if a game that I paid for became, free on Game Pass less than a year after. And maybe I'm just weird about it, but I kind of feel like that's my general sensibility, is like a year seems to be what feels right for me.
Yeah, and I just looked it up just to be accurate. So the Black Panther DLC was actually free, so I apologize, but it did just come out on the 17th of August. Now, the Avengers game, I agree with Mac. It's probably been out close to a year. But I don't know. I would be a little bit frustrated if I had bought it, I don't know, even a year ago, and then it came out for free, because it ended up not being what people expected. Now, case in point, Galvatron says Square Enix is putting it on Game Pass because it has been a money loser, and Microsoft pays for some of the development costs, plus pays a per download fee for it. This is their method to recoup some revenue. He also says Marvel's Avengers is not worth the download. It's one of the most cynical and repetitive games I've ever played. I won't read the whole comment there, but I will say this. I played it in beta, and I enjoyed it. Like, I saw what was happening. I was like, oh, this is going to be a beat 'em up. Like, on rails, just linear, just punching, and then getting new powers, and it is going to be repetitive. But that doesn't mean that I can't download it and have some fun with it. And to me, that's what Game Pass is about. We've reached the point with Game Pass where there's enough stuff on there that I'm curious about, and my subscription just ran out, that I'm thinking about getting it again. And Mac, I always have this back and forth in my mind of like, I want to experience games the best way, but because Game Pass is available on PC, and I have a PC, there's no reason for me to go buy a new Xbox. We've talked about this over and over and over again. And a new Xbox is $500. I could buy Game Pass and play Halo. I could play Back for Blood, which comes out in a couple days and it's going to be on Game Pass. And if I wanted to spend that $500, if I had money burning a hole in my pocket, I could put that 500 towards my PC. And I think a lot of people are starting to do that. So adding Avengers on there sweetens the deal because it's a superhero thing and people like it. And we'll see what happens with that. For the sake of time, that has been our news for the week.
All right. Well, now that we've looked into what's going on around us right now, let's take a look into the past with some video game history. So, got a couple of cool ones. Notably, in 1996, the launch of the Nintendo 64 and everything that comes with it. I am quite sure that Nintendo worked that into their Nintendo Direct announcement as well. So, though not having been there for it, just speculation. But also, Super Mario 64, because it was launch title. Fantastic game. I love it. The only thing...
Great game.
Yeah, the only thing I object to about it is how the Lakitu running the camera was just kind of a pill some of the time. But, it was an early attempt to do, 3D platforming. So there's bound to be little issues here and there and, things that we run into. Oh man, I'm going to skip this one because, man, there's something real cool I want to explain. But 1994, we saw the release of System Shock. Which is not just a cool FPS horror game on a space station with both physical and virtual worlds, because you'll go into the virtual world to hack a station and everything. But I think it might actually be the first game that gave you fine control over difficulty in it. Previously, I feel like the options in gaming were kind of like what you'd see in Wolfenstein 3D or Duke Nukem. You'd have these just, do you want it easy, normal, hard, crazy? But this actually had 4 different aspects in System Shock. And you could, basically slide stuff around and choose how difficult you wanted this aspect to be. And at this point in time, the enemies respawned, or if you had the slider this way, they didn't respawn at all. How plentiful things were. You could fine tune this kind of stuff to what what your play style was. And I'm pretty sure that was the start of any sort of fine-tuned difficulty adjustment in a video game. I'm willing to be wrong, but I'm also willing to go out on a limb. But perhaps what I think is the most important contribution to video game history this week occurred in 1998. And for the original Game Boy, we saw the release of Pokemon Red and Blue, which played such a huge role in my own personal, personal gaming journey. I was living in a new place, had new neighbors, had a neighbor around my age, and I did have the gray brick Game Boy, but I really didn't have much in the way of games until a neighbor for whom I still consider myself to be good friends with. We still talk every so often, even though we're on completely different parts of the United States. And he said, hey, you can have Pokemon Red if you promise to trade with me. He had a little bit more spending cash than I did back in those days, and so I accepted, and he had Blue, I had Red, and we played through the games together. We traded all the Pokemon. When Yellow came out, we added that to the mix. We even went so far as to learn, a little bit of Japanese and import the Japanese cartridges of Gold and Silver. It was
nice.
Yeah, it was just, in a lot of ways, I feel like a whole year of my life was put into Pokemon Red and Blue. That whole summer was just defined by Pokemon Red and Blue. But in no way was it more defined than our insatiable quest for Mew. Because we had heard that Mew was a secret Pokemon that you could get in Pokemon Red and Blue. And we heard true. Yes, it was true. Mew was there, programmed into the game. However, only obtainable through either A, cheating for it, Game Shark, or what have you, or by showing up to a Pokemon held event in, I'm pretty sure in Japan or otherwise, but to a Pokemon company held event in order to get it put onto your game. Unless, of course, you were to employ some glitches. Mr. Nice Guy, are you familiar with the Mew glitch, the way that you wind up getting Mew?
I remember hearing about it, but didn't it involve a special type of Pokeball? Because wasn't Mew the one that only appeared once in the game, and if you didn't catch it, you couldn't get it?
Nope. It never appears in the game. Mew never appears, not even once. There were so many rumors about that. Like, you needed the special thing. You needed the Master Ball. You are thinking, I think, of Mew 2, where you would go and you would encounter him. But Mew didn't at all. There were rumors like Kane is posting in the chat. There were rumors about knocking over a pickup truck. Wasn't there. The only way to get it was to go to that event or engage in this really interesting glitch that you had a 1-frame window between when a trainer would see you and come over and lock the game down and come to you in order to make a have a challenge, have a duel. You had a 1-frame window wherein you could like escape through fly or whatever else. And by flying away and then getting involved in a battle outside of that trainer battle, of that screen, if you will, and encountering something with a special value of 21, you would essentially, special as in like the stat thing, you would essentially overflow the data from the cartridge so that it would think the next thing when you went back to that trainer, right? You'd go back and then it would think that what you were running into was a Mew that you could catch because that 21 coded in hexadecimal, pushed all those numbers and everything. And then, and only then, without going to one of those events, could you catch a Mew. It was the only way.
Wow.
And I spent ages looking into this, trying to find ways, and there were all these rumors and all these different things, and this was posted up by somebody whose uncle worked at Nintendo, of course, because everybody has an uncle that works at Nintendo. But it wound up being, simultaneously more complicated, but also less complicated than all the various things we tried. I remember once a trolling video with somebody I know telling somebody to jump up and down and sing the lyrics to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in order to unlock these things. And that was the level of some of the things that we were doing to try and get Mew that summer. But alas, we never got him legit. We never even got him that glitched way because it wouldn't be for years until we found out what exactly the truth of the situation was. But I have to take my hat off and acknowledge that Pokemon Red and Blue started a gaming journey for me that is, still to this day fills my heart with just love and appreciation, because I wouldn't be where I am today, at least in gaming sense. Who knows, maybe other senses, without this fantastic game. So that's just a little bit of history for you, but Pokemon Red and Blue.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, we all have good memories of it. I remember kids playing it in church, like, like in the chapel, like playing it while we're supposed to be paying attention. Like, it was the game. it was the game that really like got a lot of us into gaming. And not me. It wasn't my thing. I did have Pokemon Blue, but I know from my brother, like he still plays Pokemon to this day because it had that big an influence. And so I
Yeah.
need to get into it eventually. But Mac, was there more gaming history, or was that? I mean, that was phenomenal.
Oh, well, thanks. You're too kind. No, it was just Pocket Monsters. That's the headline. Pocket Monsters.
Well, fantastic. And on that note, we'll move on to our next thing, which is the topic of the week, where we discuss something relevant in gaming and give our opinions on it. Now, this is something that's going to have strong opinions, I suspect, from a lot of people in the chat. And Mac, I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this. So, during the Nintendo Direct, they also announced that there is going to be a new Super Mario Brothers movie. Uh, and let me just read some of this and we'll talk about it. So, this is on GameSpot.com, written by David Walensky. After Nintendo recently announced the main voice cast for its upcoming new animated Mario movie, actor and co-star of the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Film, John Leguizamo, took to Twitter to voice his disappointment that, quote, they went all white. In the nearly 20 years since the original's release, Leguizamo has been among the most outspoken of the movie's complicated and flawed legacy as a box office dud. I'm just going to read his tweet, Mac, and then I'm also going to read the cast, since you may or may not be aware of who is cast as these. So glad This is from John Leguizamo. So glad Super Mario Bros. Is getting a reboot. Obviously, it's iconic enough, but too bad they went all white, no Latinx in the leads. Groundbreaking colorblind casting in original. Plus, I'm the only one who knows how to make this movie work script-wise. So, just to give you some perspective about who is going to voice the people, Chris Pratt is going to be voicing Mario. I don't know if you knew this already. Charlie Day is going to be Luigi. Had an ad pop up here. Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach. Jack Black as Bowser. And then Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. We got Keegan-Michael Key as Toad. We got Fred Armisen as Cranky Kong. We got Kevin Michael Richardson. I don't know who he is, but he is African-American from this picture, voicing Kamek. Sebastian Maniscalco as Spike. And then we got other people. But, Mac, first of all, let's start with Chris Pratt. What do you think about Chris Pratt as Mario? Doing the voice.
I mean, that could be okay. I personally think that Chris Pratt is a little bit overrated as an actor, but what I have to jump ahead and say, though, what I am interested in is Jack Black as Bowser, because that could either be absolutely incredible or it could be kind of unfortunate, because it's like, I feel like Jack Black could do almost anything, but I mean, Bowser's not really supposed to be a comedic role, is he? Aside from him being, a villain, there's nothing really funny about that, is there?
Show. I think so. I don't know. I will say this, though. I got to point out, and I just pointed it out in the chat, right before we did the show, Mac used a Chris Pratt gif in the chat in the Discord, so I just think that's ironic, is all I'm saying.
Hey, it's like rain on your wedding day.
That's right. Now, here's the thing. Chris Pratt, and I was talking to my brother about this, I don't think he's the best actor, but I also don't think that they're looking for the best actor to play Mario, right? Here's the thing is, video game movies are so hard. It's such a hard thing. And so if you have a video game movie and it's bad, it's gonna flop. But if you have a video game movie and it's bad, but it has big name actors in it and actresses, people are gonna see it just because they're fans of those people. So I think it was probably a strategic move more than anything on Nintendo's part. What do you think, Mac, about the quote unquote need, or rather the lack of diversity in this movie, according to John Leguizamo? I don't know. It's a cartoon movie. I don't know. I have some really strong opinions on this, but I don't know if I'm bothered by it.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we probably could have found somebody different for the Chris Pratt role. But I feel like, ambivalent about the rest of them. Although I will say, Kane does bring up something that I think's the right opinion to have here, as I would need to hear voice clips to form any real opinions on the casting choices. And yeah, and
Yeah.
I think yeah, that's only fair. Um, but at the same time, Metzgirl does bring out that they totally chose, Jack Black and Chris Pratt for bringing in people. I mean, it's probably going to
Right.
work. Jack Black's probably going to work for me.
Right. I mean, like, yeah, you got it. And I mean, I like Mario stuff, so I'm excited to watch this with my kids. Like, if it was like a live action movie and they cast Chris Pratt as Mario, I might not watch it. Just because I think that's kind of an absurd casting choice. But where it's just voice acting, like, I'm not really bothered by the lack of diversity. Also, I Googled it out of curiosity, and Charles Martinet, who originally voiced Mario, was not Italian. He was French.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen a few Italian people tweeting out and saying, "Hey, I'm Italian. I could have done this. I have a real mustache." Like someone said that as a joke. Um, the original voice actor was not Italian himself. Daniel Craig said something really interesting this week, and I don't really follow him, but I'm excited for the new Bond. He basically said he doesn't see any reason for a person of color to play Bond. He thinks that Hollywood needs to focus more on making good roles for people of color to play, so that we don't have to shoot. And I agree with him on that. Like, we don't need. I don't think there's a bad thing about maybe Idris Elba playing Bond, but I don't think we need to shoehorn. And interesting, he said Bond. He said a person of color or a woman to play Bond. We really do need to have more diverse roles in Hollywood. Now, I agree with him on that. I disagree that it would be, a quote unquote problem for someone of color to play Bond. But I also agree we shouldn't shoehorn someone in there. It's the same thing with this Mario Brothers thing. Like, these are fictional characters. None of them are, no black. I mean, granted, John Leguizamo wanted some Latinx people in the movie, and I could see his point, but I really don't think it's that big a deal for voice acting. So, what else are people saying in the chat, Mac? Anything else we should read before we move on?
I mean, I think there's nothing that can follow such pitch perfect commentary as Idris Elba as James Bond.
Yeah, he'd be great. He would be great. And I'm excited for the new Bond. I'm also cautiously optimistic about this new Mario Brothers movie. And Mac, that's all I have on the topic of the week.
All right, well, now we will turn to a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off the ground. We call this Kick or Kickstart, and you know how to play the game. There's a link in the chat right now for you people who are here with us live. The name of the crowdfunding project is called Keylocker. Let's see whether or not we should kickstart it or kick it out of here. Let's start with the important things first. If you want a digital copy of the game, $15 for a thing on release. It does say that it is 25% discounted, which means that their expectation at the end is to charge $20 when it launches. So we do know that already. The estimated delivery date on that is August 2023. So this is a couple years out in the development cycle, and they're looking for $35,000 to put the game together. So what is it? It is a tactics rhythm game with a cyberpunk future. It's got those beautiful crispy pixels, isometric. It borrows elements from Chrono Trigger in being like there's no random encounters. You'll see them coming and maybe can bypass them if you want. It's got some Guitar Hero style mini games. Being made by a team of 6 to 8 people or so. At the current moment, the cast is 6 people, and they've got a couple of contractors that are helping out, not exactly part of the main team. And yeah, now I will say this, that one of the things that I regularly see in a cyberpunk style game is the visuals being a little bit too bright or a little bit too busy. inside of the game itself, and I hope that these guys can avoid that. But yeah, Mr. Nice Guy, any first impressions here?
I don't like it. I mean, I think that they're trying to do a little bit too much. If you've ever seen one of those games where they like have a bunch of mini games all put together and then try to call it a game, I feel like that's what they're doing here. Like they have the little Guitar Hero sequences, but then they also have you running around and talking to people. It also seems like there's some point and click elements, kind of like Telltale's The Walking Dead. So I don't know, man. I'm not immediately impressed by this.
Well, I should mention that in general, it's a bit more like an RPG. It's mostly an RPG, but the tactics and the rhythm stuff mostly comes out in the combat itself. There's definitely rhythm stuff for parrying and things like that, the music and so on. Well, you know me, Mr. Nice Guy. As much as I might like the concept, and I do like the concept, it checks a lot of boxes for me.
Okay.
I have to have
Yeah.
a playable demo. I have to see that you can bring it all together. And I'm proud to say that this does have a playable demo. I'm also sad to say that it did fall into that pitfall that I mentioned about cyberpunk games being the visuals being a little bit too busy, and I was a touch disappointed that that the clarity behind the timing in battle was not really there, like I felt like it should have been, especially in a tutorial setting. But oh well, you can't have it all. At least not right at the outset. But it's I liked it. I enjoyed it. I played around. I think I put about an hour or so of time into the demo. I found some parts that legit challenged me in a way that I had to go back and redo. Save or load a previous save and keep going. But yeah, I quite enjoyed Keylocker. I understand if it's not for you, Mr. Nice Guy, but I'm not going to bury the lead any longer. I say kickstart. I quite enjoyed it, and I'm going to be dropping my money on this one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think part of my skepticism is that I put money on a game called Hazelnut Bastille in 2018, and by Aloft Studios, I'm talking to you, Aloft, and they still have not come out with the game. They're constantly emailing me and everybody saying, "Hey, we just finished creating this one enemy," and I'm like, "Okay, but where is the game?" The game was supposed to come out in 2019, and it still is not out. And so this game that we're talking about, Keylocker, is estimated to come out in 2023. Mac, we're not even gonna remember at that point. Like, I don't even think about Hazelnut Bastille except for when they email me about it. And so I just feel like there's too many moving parts in terms of what they're trying to do with the game, and it's too far. That's 2023. Come on, that's 2 years away.
I think that anything less than a couple of years and you're getting into that territory where you're being overly ambitious and you're not going to have the time to deliver on time. We see that a lot with a lot of companies that, go to Kickstarter and they're like, oh, well, we'll do it for this many thousands of dollars and it'll be out in 8 to 10 months. Like just last time there was it'll be under a year and we don't even have a playable demo ready to go. It's like, no, you can't do it. But there's a lot of stuff that's ready to rock and roll already with this one that you can kind of tell from the playable demo. So I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll be able to keep to 2 years. Now, of course, rarely, if ever, does anybody ever keep to their timeline. But I think at 2 years, there's a ghost of a chance.
So it's episode 200. We can go over a little bit. I got to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
So I just used our good friend Google.
Mhm.
And I had to look up, the most iconic Kickstarter game of all time, in my
Hollow
opinion,
Knight?
which is Shovel.
Shovel Knight.
Shovel Knight. Yeah, Hollow Knight too, but Shovel Knight right? Because Shovel Knight had so many expansions,
Mm-hmm.
and kept going for a long time. So, just for some perspective,
Okay.
the funding started on March 15th, 2013, ended on April 14th, 2013. So their funding ended on April 14th, 2013. Obviously, they were funded. They needed 75,000. They got people to pledge over 300,000. The game came out June 26th, 2014. So about 13 months after the ending of the Kickstarter. Now, maybe that's not the norm, but it can be done, right? And so to me, 2 years is still too long, but that's just
You know, you're absolutely right, Mr. Nice Guy. When you're right, you're right. It can be done in 13 months or so. I, however, just think that 2 years is a pretty realistic time frame, and it's the type of time frame that you stand a chance of hitting, as opposed to I don't know. Remember what Yacht Club Games was saying about Shovel Knight when it would release at the time originally. And you know, if we weren't doing this live, we could go check and look it up and splice it in. But
Yeah.
it is one of those where I feel like, you know, most places, if they were to do that, they would just be doing the Hazelnut Bastille thing, where they're just like, oh, we're still working on
Yeah.
it, still working on it. And I think there's a lot to be said about maybe erring on the side of caution and being able to deliver close. That being said, I've had my fair share of games that I've backed and that I'm still waiting for past the due date. But to be honest, I kind of treat all these as sort of, it'll be nice when it happens if it happens. So I understand once bitten, twice shy on these.
I totally get it, man. I totally get it. Well, my vote is to kick it, but that's just me. What do you think, chat? And Mac, what do you think?
Well, I definitely say kickstart. Kane is going to kick it as well. Mets girls with me on the kickstart. So I guess that puts us locked. If you want to cast that tiebreaker, let us know in the chat.
Cool. Mac, I think it's a dope project, and we wish them the best. Not for me, and there's just a few things that were suspect. That said, let's move on to Nerd Flex,
Woohoo!
a segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the hosts. And I feel like we haven't gotten completely stumped in quite a while. So if you're here live, you have some things you can do to help out if you want to. Let us know in the chat what gaming question you have, preferably multiple choice, and must be gaming related. And we will try to answer it without Google, without phone a friend, without any lifelines other than each other. In the meantime, we will use some stuff from the test bank while we wait for you to get those questions in. And Mac, we did a sound test last week, right?
We did indeed.
Now, what game was that from?
Ha! You're not going to trick me so easily.
I figured I'd give it a shot. Well, let's start with one of these questions from the test bank while we wait to see if people want to get those in the chat. Mac, this one is the randomized question that came up first. Final Fantasy. Who said it? Quote, allow me to shatter your delusions of grandeur. Allow me to shatter your delusions of grandeur. Final Fantasy.
I feel like that's definitely a villain line. So I think we can kind of say, you know, gotta be a villain. And I feel like I can name a couple of the villains from the Final Fantasy franchise, but the problem is it doesn't sound familiar enough that I could narrow it down to one. So honestly, I'm just going to have to throw out a villain name and go with it. Mr. Nice Guy, do you have a better bearing than me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me give you a little bit more perspective. It says Final Fantasy 17. Is there a Final Fantasy 17? I don't even know Final. It says Final Fantasy hyphen 17. I don't think there's a 17 Final Fantasy. So I don't know why that's in here. Maybe that's a typo.
Yeah.
But regardless, the quote is correct. Allow me to shatter your delusions of grandeur. And unfortunately, Mac, I don't know a ton about Final Fantasy. I was hoping it was maybe from Tactics, and you would be like, "Yep, know that one."
Well, I think I'm going to err on the side of the one I'm most comfortable with, which is Final Fantasy VIII, which would make it either Sorceress Edea or Sorceress Adele. I suppose it could also be Cypher, but I feel like I would remember that from Cypher. So, um, I'll say Sorceress Adele. I think is what I think the name of the villain. Final
Okay.
answer.
What were the other ones that you said? Just curious. What were the other ones you thought
Sorceress
it might be?
Edea and Cypher. Cypher's kind of your,
Okay.
one of the other
Okay.
antagonists.
No worries. So it was actually Beatrix. Is the name of the boss.
Oh, Beatrix. That would
Um,
be from Final Fantasy IX, I think. Um, and I mean, I guess she's sort of in an antagonist role for some period of time. Oh man, oh well. I'm sorry, Mr. Nice Guy, that I'm the dead weight on this one. I hope that I can redeem myself with this question from Mets Girl. This comes from GoldenEye 64. The iconic game had some strange facts related to it. Which of the following is false? Is it A, most of the support character faces were those of Rare Studio employees? B, it was meant to be a 2D side scroller for the NES? C, the lead developer didn't watch the movies? Or D, multiplayer was a last minute addition? And I do know that the multiplayer was a last minute addition. That one I'm putting down and saying that one's true. The other three, ooh, Mr. Nice Guy, can you help me piece this
Dude,
puzzle?
this is a dope question.
Yeah.
This is a dope question. I like this. So let's see. Support faces were those of our employees. I think that is true. Just because that's the type of thing that Rare would do.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's just generally speaking the type of thing that people would do in making a video game, right? You don't want to use the faces of anyone else because then there's issues, right? But there ended up being issues with his process. But what was it? It was meant to be a side scroller for SNES. That I don't think that's true. I think that that's false. But let's read the rest of them one more time. Lead developer didn't watch the movies. That seems pretty realistic. Like I could really see that. I think it's the SNES thing. Like I refuse to believe that it was going to be a side scroller for the SNES, and I'm trying to think what year it came out because it didn't. I don't believe it came out like right at launch for the N64, and if it had, then I would be more inclined to believe that.
Well, the launch of the 64, as we discussed just in video game history, was 1996. And I don't remember
Correct.
what year GoldenEye came out, but I feel like
I feel like GoldenEye came out in 96.
Really?
I feel like the movie came out in 1996. And I don't think the game launched alongside the movie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure GoldenEye was not a launch title. I'm with you there. But, I'm just trying to piece my head around. Because if the console hadn't yet launched, there's that, like, window there where people could still be making games. But, yeah, I think that GoldenEye is just too far. I think it's too far in. I think we're right. I think that B is the false
Here's
one.
the thing. Even if it was going to be made as an SNES game, I can't believe that they were going to make it a side scroll. Because we had Super Mario RPG, right? I don't think that would have been. So, and also, I don't think that it would have been that easy to go from a 16-bit type of game and just redo it completely and make it for N64. So I really believe that's the answer.
Okay, I'm going to go with you on this one. Final answer. GoldenEye 64 was never meant to be a 2D side-scroller for the SNES. That's what we think is false. Mets Girl, a good question. Let us know what the correct answer in this situation was. The correct answer was C. Wow. So the lead developer did watch the movies. That's the one statement on those that was false. So the lead developer did watch the movies, which, I mean, well,
So it was
0
going to
for
be a
2.
2D side scroller for SNES? That's okay. Last question. We got one from Galvatron. In the original Rampage arcade game, how did the monsters replenish health? Knocking down buildings, eating people, fighting each other, random lightning strikes, group hopping into something, or is there no health regen? And I know the answer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's by eating people, right?
Yeah, they ate people for sure.
Yep.
Eight
so,
people.
Final answer. Well, we appreciate Mets Girl you bringing the answers. You come with receipts, much appreciated. But at least we did not get clean swept this time around.
I'm pretty sure that Rampage one is a sure thing, unless he's going to be like, well, technically they could eat people and there was fruit. But I actually am like 99% sure that they ate.
Well, looks like we got it right this time, for once.
Yep. Nice. Well, thank you everybody for playing. That has been Nerdflix.
All right. Well, now we turn to a little bit of legalese. So I'm not a lawyer. I just play one here on a podcast, and I was debating about saying something about Roblox because there was this whole lawsuit with the National Music Publishers Association that they settled, but honestly, it was kind of a slow lawsuit week. And you know, their settlement really isn't all that interesting. It seems to be fairly similar to the lawsuit that Twitch settled. And being somebody who doesn't play Roblox that much, I can't really offer much in the way of insight. I do know that they started implementing listening parties recently, and that Lil Nas the 10th recently had a concert there not that long ago. Let's see if he notices. But that all being said, instead of focusing on that, I do want to make a quick response because I received a comment in response to legalese from episode 199 and about my characterization of Epic in the lawsuit, and I wanted to make a clarification that I might not have done a good job of bringing up in episode 199. And that was that the court identified a number of items that Epic had claimed, particularly as part of their Project Liberty media campaign, that were fabrications and falsities. And I mentioned 5 of those in episode 199, and what I didn't do a very good job of explaining is that Epic was very careful about how they worded things in court to avoid legal reprisals. And there were no such reprisals to be had in public, so they said whatever lies they thought could help them, you know. And as part of that whole fact-finding discovery that happened in the Apple v. Epic, those items came to light, along with the internal communications that identified the lies that they were pushing because it made them sound better. So yes, you know who you are. You were absolutely correct. They didn't claim those false things in writing when they knew they would be held accountable for lying. They just said them publicly, where more people would hear and perpetuate the lies with no regard to truth, accuracy, and absolutely no consequences. And now I need to channel my inner Chidi Anagonye and say, okay, but that's worse. You do get how that's worse, right? And I think I know it's not that much legalese today, but that's a little bit of legalese for you.
Mac, are you referring to when I brought this up last week?
No, I'm not referring to you. This is somebody completely different. I wouldn't be so passive aggressive with you, man. I would just tell you.
I was like, dude, I'm right here with you, Doug. Like, and I thought you were, and I was okay with it because it was making me smile. But I was like, I can respond. Like, we can have a conversation. But no, that's cool, man. That's good. Please, I like that. I like that we can admit when we're quote unquote wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, cool. Dude, Mac, you know what we didn't talk about on the pod today?
What didn't we
talk
talk
about? It post show. There's a new D&D coming out 2024. Not really related to video games, but new D&D coming out 2024. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 200, everybody. Before we go, we have one last segment called What We've Been Watching and What We've Been Playing, where we talk about just that, and you know the drill. If you're here live, you got a job to do. Let us know about the cool, nerdy stuff you've been into. Mac, what you been into this past 2 weeks?
Man, I've just been watching a little bit of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, to chill out in the evening, and I finished another Metroid 2 remake, which was just incredible. The only issue I can bring up is that some of the later Metroid bosses are a little rough on shooting them with the missiles, but hey, it's Endgame. So, you got to expect that. And I've also played Key Locker. That was the demo for the Kicker Kickstart. And yeah, that's what I've been watching and what I've been playing. What about you?
Dude, it's been a lot of the same for me. I'm really, really enjoying Deathloop. That's a really good game, and I don't know if it's going to be my game of the year, but I think it's really good, and I kind of wish it hadn't gotten so many 10s out of 10s. Because I feel like it would have been more fun for me if it was like a surprise how good it is. But instead I was like, oh, everyone loves this. And so I'm kind of like, yeah, it's really good, but I don't know about 10s. So we'll see what happens with Game of the Year votes. I've also been watching Y the Last Man. I love that show. It's a really solid show. I would say it's like an 8 out of 10. 7.5, 8 out of 10. But it's like a show that filled the void that I need right now of new shows. Been watching some Flash with the wife on Netflix, and the kids are really into this reality show, The Masked Singer. So we've been watching some of that and watching a few. So that's pretty much what I have been watching and playing. Oh, one other thing I'll mention that I have been playing, and y'all could laugh, but I've really been enjoying it. Some of you know I got that Backbone controller from my iPhone, and I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty Mobile. They finally made it so you could squad up with people who are real and not just bots, so I've been having fun with that. Mac, what are people into in the chat?
Well, we don't have many offerings at the moment, but I'm seeing some Lucifer.
This week. Okay.
Yeah, Lucifer and Kippo in the Age of Wonder Beasts, and Skyrim, D&D, and Metzgirl is reading the Scythe series.
They're starting to come in. We got someone playing RimWorld, Force of Nature 2, and Castlevania Advanced Collection. Now, that was another thing that was announced at Nintendo Direct, which was the Castlevania Advanced Collection, and I believe it dropped the same day. So I assume you're playing that on Switch, Kane? What else we got? Galvatron watching Grumpy Old Man and Collateral. Tom Cruise is a great villain. And Air Wilson says there's a new one called Alter Ego. We'll keep those things coming. We'll read them in the post-show. Mac, why don't you take us home?
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining, for being here with us, for making episode 200 awesome, and thanks for making this show awesome like you guys always do. Thanks for coming out. Be sure to join us next time. It's 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Pacific each Tuesday on twitch.tv/2nerdsinapod. Keep it nerdy, everyone. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye, everybody.